नमस्कार, सत श्री अकाल, राम राम सा, हमारी वणक्कम, प्रणाम। आप सभी को ऑल्टरनेट मीडिया में फिर से स्वागत है। छोटे से गैप के बाद हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं पीवीआर नरसिम्हा राव, पेरियाना। एंड इट्स ऑलवेज अ प्लेजर एंड एन ऑनर। मैं अपने व्यूअर्स को बताना चाहूंगी कि पेरियाना हैड डिजाइन्ड which all the astrologers today use, Jagannath Hora. That was a chart that, and he made it public, like anybody can use for free. All the astrologers can use for free. So a lot of people call me and they ask me कि sir से connect करा दो, sir से connect करा दो. So uh, as per his very limited time that he gets apart from his profession, this is not his profession. मैं पहले बता रही हूँ, it is his passion and his hobby, I would say, because it's in the family. Periana के father was also an astrologer. So it is very difficult for him. बहुत rarely Periana does the astrological reading. But yes, if you want to understand, he has a lot of articles, he has a lot of videos on his website, on his YouTube channel. When you go and listen to them, you can make out a lot of things. And you can understand your also what is, आपका कौन सा दशा चल रहा है, महादशा चल रहा है, and things like that. So since this is a political channel, we will get into politics, we'll dive deep. Lot of things are happening. हम इंडिया यूएसए की बात नहीं करेंगे, हम थक चुके हैं इंडिया यूएसए कर करके, बट आज हम शुरू करेंगे महामहिम माय लॉर्ड की तरफ से. पेरियाना, a lot has been going on, and it has come as a shock that a lawyer has come forward and asked for an FIR on Sanjeev Sanyal, the economic advisor of India, just because he said couple of lines. So, and Sanjeev Sanyal is a very cool, thorough gentleman. He hardly speaks anything, but if he's saying something, he's actually echoing the emotions of the public in general, right? So, my first political question in going into the astrology is Supreme Court का क्या होगा? जी.
As you correctly said, Sanjeev Sanjalji is a very wise person, very calm person, and whatever he says, there is some logic and reasoning behind it. He's a very measured person. He doesn't say anything casually or just to basically create some commotion. He's not that kind of person. So, anyways, going back to the controversy that was created by it, and in general, the judiciary reform in India. The thing is, in India's chart, based on India's chart where Moon is in Karkarasi, Saturn is in the 9th house of judiciary right now. And in mundane astrology, 9th house is the house of judiciary. And Saturn is the 8th lord from Moon, and he's in the 9th house. So when the 8th lord is transiting in the 9th house, it's not really a good transit as far as judiciary is concerned. So the next couple of years can be problematic for Indian judiciary. In other words, whatever Sanjeevji said, I will not be surprised if that sentiment is actually capturing the mood of the nation, and slowly a movement grows towards judiciary reform in India. So the next couple of years are the right window of opportunity when Shani is in the Meena Rasi, the 9th house from India's natal moon, independence chart moon. This is the right time. So my expectation is that in the next couple of years, there will be some judiciary reforms and there will be a lot of public sentiment against judiciary. Another thing is the planet Saturn, he shows masses. See, different planets represent different forces within a society. Saturn is the planet of masses. And as I said, he is the 7th and 8th lord from India's Karkarasi. So he's a Maraka, and he's in the 9th house of judiciary. So the masses will be against the judiciary during this time, and judiciary will face some problems relating to that. So overall, and moreover, when the 8th lord is in the 9th house, judiciary reform is a possibility. So I will not be surprised. As a matter of fact, I expect that in the next couple of years, there will be some significant judiciary reforms in India.
And Modi ji will be leading those reforms, undoubtedly.
Modi ji can lead, and if Modi ji gives way to another prime minister in the next couple of years, that person can continue the effort. But it will start in Modi ji's term. As I've been saying, even though it seems absolutely unlikely or impossible at this time, I do expect that there'll be a change of guard in Indian government in the next few years, definitely before 2029 election. As it can be as early as late 2026 and as late as late 2028, but most likely time period is 2027. But it is very likely that there will be a change of guard. But the thing is, it will not be like one philosophy is throwing away another philosophy. It will be continuation of the same philosophy. It will be continuation of the NDA. It will be continuation of BJP in power. So whoever comes next will just continue the policies. And of course, they may hone certain policies more, certain policies that Modi ji already has. They may be emphasized more, but the thing is, there will not be a wholesale change. So this judiciary reform that I am talking about, this will be started by Modi ji himself in the next year or so. But one thing is for sure, based on India's chart, the public sentiment will be towards this. Public sentiment will be against the judiciary. They will feel like Indian judiciary, Indian courts are abusing the power given to them. Also, they will feel like some of the power that they hold is unjustified. It's basically a remnant of the colonial way of looking at the world,
Hangover.
worldview,
Hangover.
just a colonial hangover. And I guess that is basically the point that Sanjeev ji was trying to basically get at. And I suspect, given that eighth Lord Saturn is transiting in the ninth house from India's moon, natal moon, I suspect that the public sentiment against the judiciary and towards some kind of judiciary reform that is more commonsensical will grow over the next couple of years as Saturn is in Mem Rasi.
So I'll shoot the next question, Periana, and that next question is: US is preparing for war, China is preparing for war, Europe is preparing for war. So are we looking at, I don't think so US and India will go for war, but is are we looking at US China war anytime? Because background, a lot of geopolitical things across the world are happening. So what do you say?
I have maintained for a long time, many years, that a major war between the top two powers of the world, which are undoubtedly China and US, is almost inevitable. It'll and the likely time period that I have mentioned many times is 2030, late 2030, 2031 time frame. So unfortunately, whatever we have been seeing, the pandemic and after that the disturbance in the world commerce and the competition between US and China for influence across the world, in Africa, in South America, in Southeast Asia, in Australasia. This whole thing is inevitably moving them towards a major war. And I will not be surprised if the leadership of both US and China is aware of this. They have already concluded that there will be a major confrontation between them, major war between them, and they're actually planning behind the scenes, not necessarily directly, but behind the scenes they already started their planning. That is my expectation. And they may be looking at 2027, 2028 kind of time frame, but for some reasons that they cannot, some factors that they cannot control, the timeline will be pushed and the actual big war will be in the 2030 time frame. Even though US and China governments may be planning for something earlier, given the current momentum of various tensions that are rising between them, the time frame I'm looking at is 2030, when Guru Guru and Rahu will be in Vrishchika Rasi in Anuradha Nakshatra, and Shani and Ketu will be very closely conjoined in Rohini Nakshatra in Vrishchika Rasi. So all the four planets, Guru Rahu in Vrishchika and Saturn Ketu in Vrishabha, they are almost in Samsaptaka, almost exactly opposite each other. So four planets, four major planets, all within a small arc basically. And moreover, Scorpio is an evil sign. It is the eighth house of destruction in the natural zodiac. So, and moreover, Saturn's Rohini transit is feared in tradition. If you look at any astrological classics or even Puranas, they talk about Saturn going through Rohini and then some disasters happening in the world. For example, the World Trade Center. This kind of things are brought by Saturn transiting in Rohini. So that is the time frame I'm looking at. I'm not saying that there will not be any wars in 2027, 2028. In general, this whole decade is a decade of destruction, chaos, conflict, and crazy moves by people in power, which will basically bring them closer to a disastrous war. So this time is conducive to that. But whatever we see, whether it's Israel's increasing wars in the neighborhood with various Arab nations, starting with Gaza but slowly expanding, or whether the Ukraine-Russia war. And as I said earlier, there may be some temporary peace, but it's unlikely to last forever. So basically, that is another theater of war. But the thing is, the real theater, the major theater, will be around Taiwan. So when that theater finally opens, the third theater, one is in the Middle East, one is in Eurasia, basically Ukraine area, and the third theater of the major war will be in the Southeast Asia. So once that opens, then basically the so-called World War III or just a major war is unavoidable. And I'm thinking that in late 2020s, the tensions between China and US will reach such a simmering point, and finally in 2030, 2031, it will really peak. But as far as India is concerned, I do not, even though based on the current tensions between India and US relating to the trade war, people may be thinking that, and also some of the bonhomie that we see among the BRICS nations, people may think that China will be India's friend and India and China will be on one side, but I'm almost sure that is not going to happen. In the end, India will be on the sidelines, not directly involved, but it will be directly involved towards the end, and it will be pro US at that time, not pro China.
Hmm. Now, because we are talking about China US war, there is another war which is brewing in the civilizations. Where a lot of things have been happening. Trump is planning to revive Christianity and the far right wing of Christianity, I would say.
Mhm.
Recently, there's been a 700-year-old tradition which has been revived in one of the churches, Vatican churches, in fact,
Mhm.
which has happened. So, do we see, and the speech that he gave at the United Nations General Assembly,
Yeah.
saying Christianity is the most persecuted religion. He's setting the ground rule for
Yeah.
attack. Actually, he's planning the victim card first and then the
Yeah.
retaliation. Are we looking at that Europe and America will have a Christianity versus Islam war?
I am afraid, looking at the 300-year chart for the current times, which started in 1930s and based on the 1928, I think, or 29, and looking at the current dasha in that chart, I am afraid there'll be the religion will be used as one of the tools for enhancing conflict, for advancing conflict, and I'm afraid, as far as Trump is concerned, he doesn't really care about Christianity. What he really cares about is the nativism. Basically, people may think, oh, he's anti Islam. He is actually pro Hindu. But the thing is, it's not about Hindu or Islam, Muslim, or some other religion or Buddhist. Bottom line is, he wants his strategy will be US should be basically primarily the land of white Christians, and similarly European countries should say that they are the lands of white Christians and not allow other religions to come in as well as other ethnicities to come in. For example, there may be Christians from Africa who have a different ethnicity, and this is really about ethnocentric, nativistic nationalism. This is not really about religion, but the thing is, because a lot of Americans are emotional about religion, and particularly from late 1960s, from the time of Goldwater times and through Nixon times, slowly the Christian movement has increased. The Christian nationalist movement has really taken root in US, and with the strength of Fox News in 1990s, it has really grown in US. So there is a strong Christian nationalist movement in US, and it is kind of in bed with the white nationalist movement. There is this racist white nationalist movement also from 1950s and 1960s. So there is a merger of these two movements. So his real agenda is racism, ethnocentric nativism, but the thing is religion will be used as a card, and he is hoping that Europe will also buy in and Europe will also join him in this fight. But one thing is, whatever his real motivation is, I am afraid some in general, based on the latest Saturn Rahu conjunction chart in US, anti-immigrant sentiment will increase over the next 11 years or so. There'll be more anti-immigrant sentiment in US. And secondly, based on the 300-year chart that I mentioned, which started in 1929, the period 2020 to 2036 will see a lot of conflict, and some of them may be related to religion. So I will not be surprised at all if the anti-Islam sentiment in US and in various European countries increases in the next few years, and Muslims are targeted in the next few years. But there is another point I want to make. In general, this is a period for the fall of religion. What I mean is, people will question religion. People will see lot of violence, lot of killing in the name of religion, and they will turn away from religion. There will be more. There'll be a bigger rise of atheism than Christianity triumphing over Islam or Islam triumphing over Christianity. It will be really Christianity targeting Islam, Christianity being at war with Islam, and as a result, both the religions will suffer, and atheism, agnosticism will rise throughout the Western countries. Throughout see, there are news reports that even in some Islamic countries, like for example Iran, the number of mosques that are closing down has shot up in the last couple of years because people are losing interest in going to mosques, losing interest in following religion. And we see a similar phenomenon in Western countries also, in Europe and US also. The thing is, those who are religious in the West are becoming more aggressive and more religious. But if you look at their number is actually shrinking. There are more people who are atheists and agnostics, but the few who are still Christians or still Muslim, they are becoming more aggressive. And also, this is increasing the sense of being victims, basically, because they may be thinking that Islam is the one that is persecuting them, or Christianity is the one that's persecuting them, but it's really reason, logic, and atheism and science, rationalistic thinking. These are the real enemies of both the religions. But what I expect will happen is there will be fight between these two religions, and atheism will be the biggest winner in the West in the coming 7, 8 years.
Atheism, I have seen that growing, in fact, myself, and especially in the Gen Z. This is
Yeah,
growing. They are very detached with religious thing, and I've been saying in my shows also. But Perina, do we see a war between the two civilizations, the Christians and the Islamists, especially in Europe and US? Because we are seeing the what we have seen in UK and other places. It looks like the counter attack is coming.
yeah. But the thing is, I don't really see. It is very easy to take isolated points and extrapolate them and make a picture. See, for example, people who are living outside of India, some people in the West, they have this impression that in India, rapes happen very casually, because the narrative, if you have a few data points and that those are represented in a particular way, you can create the narrative that you want. Similarly, based on what is happening in UK, there is this narrative that in UK Christians and Muslims are killing each other, and basically uh, uh, medieval things are happening. But the thing is, my assessment is that these are isolated points which are being extrapolated to create a particular narrative that is convenient to some people. The bottom line is there is and will be even more tension between the two religions, the two predominant religions that are kind of aggressive in nature, that are expansive by design, Christianity and Islam. So there will be tension between those religions, and there will be some violence, some clashes. But the thing is, this may be being overplayed by some right wing media. I do
So
not.
you think there will be no war between Islam, Christians and Islamists?
I don't really think that there'll be a war based on religion. Like, we are not going back to 1100s and 1200s. We are not seeing any crusades or any religious wars of that nature. But the thing is, there will be tension. There will be this card played by some political parties in Europe, UK, as well as rest of the European countries, that Islam and the Muslim immigrants are a big problem. So they will play up this card, and this card will also increase the resentment among Muslims, because not all Muslims are the same way. They are not a monolith. There are some Muslims who are aggressive, who are violent, who create problem in the society, but also a lot of Muslims who are actually they mind their business. They just want a good job, their children to go to a good school, and the angst among those that they are being targeted because of the religion will increase, and it will actually, what it will end up forcing is, more and more people will become more radicalized. See, radicalized people form a small percentage, but the thing is, because their voice is amplified, they speak up more. And also the media, the social media, as well as the regular media, which basically thrives on views, which thrives on uh, people basically paying attention is paid to aggressive content, attention is paid to divisive content. So they emphasize these voices, and unfortunately you will end up pushing more and more people to join their group. Instead of dividing and conquering, what they will end up doing in the West is, they will basically unify all the people of this particular religion. So there will be a sense that these religions are at war, but it is really in the minds of people, and it may inform some decisions that the countries make. For example, right now some European countries are giving support to Palestine and certain Islamic countries. So some of those calculus may change as the domestic sentiment against Islam changes, and also political parties which are anti-Islamic, which want to basically portray Islam as a big problem and suppress Islam, or at least suppress immigration of Muslim immigration into Europe. As those parties rise, they will basically align against some of the Muslim nations. So, as this world war that I mentioned earlier develops, some of the Arabic nations, which enjoy a lot of support right now, if you look at Saudi Arabia, Qatar, etc., they enjoy a huge support even from US. US is a big ally of these countries. So, my assessment is, over the remaining few years of this decade, these countries will find it difficult to get support from, irrespective of their wealth. The domestic politics will be so aggressive, and so much along the lines of religion, that this narrative that you just mentioned about Trump, that Christianity is a persecuted religion and Islam is a big problem, immigration is a big problem, this will force the hand of some rulers in the Western countries to be against these Middle Eastern countries. So the thing is, I don't expect an explicit war between the religions, but what I expect is this narrative of religion between wars, or sorry, war between religions or war of civilizations, and this increasing anti-immigrant sentiment, it will basically force the hand of rulers to weaken the Arabic nations towards 2030. So the Israel will be, this will be actually more pro-Israel. Israel will be the winner, and the Arabic countries that are anti-Israel in the Middle East will suffer as a result of this sentiment. Other than that, I don't expect a direct war. And also there is some talk that UK will secede. There'll be a secession. There'll be a split of UK along religious lines. In my assessment, this is all overblown, overreaction. Basically, there are tensions, but the thing is, they are not like at the level that people are thinking they are, and it's just a narrative
Nice.
being created in the media.
Ji. But there's also one thing which is being spoken about is there's a revival of Hinduism in China.
Mhm.
People say that despite the fact, but the fact on the paper is Christianity is the fastest spreading religion in China.
Yes.
But a lot of astrologers, a lot of other people are saying that Hinduism is going to take over China once again. Ji.
I do expect that, but not in the next few years. See, again, you can take isolated data points and create a narrative out of it, and that's what people do. In China, there are some places where there are some Hindu practices slowly increasing, but the thing is, if you take it as a percentage of Chinese population, it is it is not at all significant. It is nothing really meaningful. But the thing is, it is easy to take an isolated data point and portray a narrative that you want to see. But right now, Hinduism doesn't really mean anything in China. But what we have to realize is some of their heritage, whether you take Taoism, whether you take the Confucius thinking, some of it is actually rooted in the same first principles that basically formed Hinduism. So it is like an offshoot of Hinduism. So there is some affinity to the foundations of Hindu thinking among Chinese people. That is a given. That has always been there. And take another thing, for example. See, we just went through Pitrapaksha, when people basically do Sraddh, Tarpan, etc. And ancestor worship is big in China. There is a period when they also worship the ancestors, and they have customs very similar to the Sraddh. They basically have very similar customs. They even have some temples, special temples near some special rivers where this is organized. So the thing is, there are a lot of civilizational similarities. But the thing is, what I expect is this will slowly grow. This will not really mean anything in the short term, but in 2030s, I do expect that after taking on US kind of over aggressively, not really overestimating their capability to take on US, China will suffer the consequences of that, and China will split as a consequence of that. So that will be in 2030s. So after that, the current communist thinking will basically fade away. In general, whatever dominates a society for a long time, if things don't work out and a society collapses, people are against that. So people will be against communism. So they will want something, some purpose, some meaning in life. They want something higher that they want to think about and feel good about their long-term trajectory. So people will turn to God. So some of these ancient Chinese religions will come back. And also at that time, Chinese people had immense respect for Hinduism from times immemorial. So Hinduism, that will be the time when Hinduism will really take root in China, and there will be certain aspects of Hinduism that are more tuned with Chinese philosophy. They will basically take root in China. So Hinduism and Buddhism will flourish again in China, but I expect that in 2030s, not in the next few years.
Very interesting, Periana. Now, since we have spoken about Hinduism, there is another thing which is brewing right in India, that is Hindu versus Muslim thing happening. And honestly, because I cover internal security, I cover law and order, geopolitics. We are we are always like quite, what do you say, stressed out about new developments when they happen, because we are walking on fire currently.
Or thin ice.
We are actually walking on fire, or we can say we are walking on the knife,
Mhm,
razor blade knife.
mhm.
Gee.
Yeah. See. The thing is, first of all, as I say many times, majority of Indian Muslims are Sanatanis by their genes and vasanas. They have those Sanatani genes in them. They are inherently tolerant, inherently. But the problem is, again, the voices of a few, the minority that is vocal, the vocal minority is always emphasized by the media. And especially in today's world of social media, where views matter, people basically emphasize all those voices. So when you basically, instead of dividing, instead of isolating those extremists within their own community, what we end up doing is we basically push everybody else towards them. So this is one thing that the right wing media within India has to introspect and correct its course. Instead of basically pushing all Muslims together, they have to find allies among Muslims. There are a lot of Muslim leaders who are tolerant. There are a lot of Muslim leaders who basically don't believe in jihad, who want to worship Muhammad, but at the same time, they're happy if you worship Hanuman or Durga by the side. They are not throwing stones at you, and they even lament those who throw stones at you. But the thing is, they are voiceless right now, and they have to be. There are some leaders, you have to enable them, you have to strengthen them, you have to give them a voice, and you have to give them a stronger position in the community than these aggressive people who are calling for throwing stones, etc. And the other aspect is, those who are aggressive and those who are taking law into their hand, those who are radicalized, you have to deal with them strongly. But the thing is, if it is only dealing with them strongly, you will end up pushing the whole community towards them, and they will play the sympathy card. So what you have to do is, you have to penalize them, you have to deal with them strongly, but at the same time, you have to have allies who are basically more moderate, and enable them and give them voice and amplify. See, there are, on social media, on various YouTube channels, you do have such people, but their voice is lower than the voice of some of the other radicalized leaders. So they have to be, the Indian right wing as well as the current government has to actively promote them, increase their voice. And now, regarding the the tensions that, for example, in the Durga Navratri celebrations, if you look at UP, the Yogi Adityanath dealt with them in a very strong way. So this is the way you have to deal with them. But at the same time, the other point I'm making is, you have to basically also make some Muslim voices, moderate Muslim voices, heard by the community. And the thing is, if several people in the community are brainwashed into believing a particular set of thought leaders, it will take time for them to accept other thought leaders. But the thing is, this is an effort that has to go on. You can't really. One thing is for sure, the, the there is a big population of Muslims in India, minorities in India, Muslims and Christians, particularly Muslims. You can't change all of them, change their religion. They will worship Muhammad, they will worship Allah, they will basically worship Quran. All what you have to try to do is, and the suppress the problematic miscreants voices among the community. And the as I said, majority of them are moderate by instinct, but they are just quiet. So you have to basically give them a voice, and there are willing leaders, you have to enable them. So that is one thing. The other thing is, I've been seeing this news of I Love Muhammad protests that are basically being planned or breaking out across India. The thing is, if you look at India's chart, if you look at the current transit, Rahu is in the 8th house. India is Karka Rasi, Rahu is in Kumbh Rasi. So Ashtam Rahu is not a good transit. This is a time of some shady conspiracies against the country, some machinations against the country. So there'll be some scandalous conspiracies that will be hatched against the country. And this kind of things are expected. They will look at various fault lines in the Indian society, whether it's caste, whether it is religion, whether it is the financial status, and try to drive a wedge and try to basically divide people and create unrest. And this will be done by not only US deep state, but these days probably Chinese deep state actually has a stronger influence in India. So both the deep state agents are finding some allies in the Indian among the Indian politicians, and they're doing this. But what gives me solace is the fact that earlier Saturn was in the 8th house at the time of, see, when we had all these farmers protest and other things. That was a more problematic time. But the thing is, now Saturn has moved away from the 8th house. So the tension in the society is not being caused by Saturn, who's the planet of masses. It is being caused by Rahu, who is basically just the shady conspirator. So
It's just even if they plan anything, whatever they want, it will not get the support of the masses.
it
In
will not
short,
get the support of masses, even though it may seem like there's a big rally, a lot of people are actually on the streets. The mass sentiment will be not there basically. Whereas at the time of farmers protest, justified or unjustified, I'm afraid there was some public sentiment that was with the farmers. They did not realize the benefits of the reform that were planned. So some regular people actually thought that this protest is genuine. Whereas this time, it will be my assessment is that people will know, masses will know that this is not a genuine issue. This is not a genuine protest. This is just whether it's vote chori or I love Muhammad or whatever that gentleman Wangchuk or somebody he's doing in
Sonam.
Ladakh. Sonam
Yeah,
Wangchuk is
he's been
doing
arrested.
in.
The funny part is he's from Ladakh but put in Rajasthan jail. So you stay away from your home
Mm.
deliberately.
The thing is, at a time that would have been conducive, for example, if Saturn and Rahu were in the eighth house, then that there will be mass sentiment against this kind of things. It will erupt. But now my assessment is Rahu shows foreign elements. It shows conspirators who are in collusion with the foreign elements. So my overall assessment is they will do their best. They will play all cards, vote chori, and then Ladakh, separate state, or I love Muhammad. They will do all these kind of cards. But the thing is, just keep your head down, focus on what matters, and deal with miscreants in a firm and stern manner. Don't be afraid of any sympathy card that will help them. Look at Kejriwal, what happened. He was dealt with very firmly because the time was bad for him. Nothing happened. No sympathy card. He did not come back to power. So he's almost basically
Done and
temporarily
dust.
at least wiped out. So I I I expect that the current time is like that for India. So you basically deal with people who are in collusion with the foreign elements and working in an anti-nationalistic way. You deal with them with a very stern and firm hand. And one thing I can say, gods will cooperate. See, when your time is bad, even with great kings like Prithviraj Chauhan, etc., fighting, basically Hinduism and Bharat was lost. The invaders basically won. So when the time is bad for you, in spite of your best efforts, if you're destined to go into slavery for 1,000 years, in spite of your best efforts, they will fail. On the other hand, this is the time, the next couple of decades are the time when you come out of that slavery. You become really assertive and you become a world leader. So you become a superpower in the world. So because the time is such, you may be tested. I'm not saying things will be smooth, but at the end things will work out. If you basically stand for the right thing, you are bold, you do the right thing, things will work out for you. That is the nature of these times. And one last thing I want to say about religion. See, again, whatever I said earlier, that atheism is a bigger threat to all the religions than one religion and being a threat to another religion. That holds for India also. In general, atheism is a challenge not only across the world, but outside of India, but also in India. Even in India, there is growing atheism, there is growing materialism. But I always maintain the dharma, Sanatan Dharma is in the very soil. It's in the genes of people. So I say don't worry about it. Don't worry about religion. Don't worry about Hinduism. What you should worry about is what India should worry about in the next 10 years is material prosperity. Become stronger, grow the wealth. All the wealth that was looted and sent abroad in the last millennium and particularly last 300 years, try to regenerate it and becomes fully self-sufficient. And defense technology is important. Cyber capabilities, AI capabilities, grow them. Become a technology superpower. Become a financial superpower. Become a military superpower. And when all this happens, when everybody has enough, this will actually solve the religious tensions, all the Hindu Muslim clashes that we see. My assessment, looking at India's chart over the next couple of decades, is in the next decade, India will prosper like anything. While the rest of the world is struggling, Indian economy will really take off. India's GDP will grow like anything, and this will basically put all the religious tensions behind the scenes. There'll be some isolated data points which will be played up by the media to
Now,
create the
once the
narrative.
money comes, will the Muslims like to convert back to their original DNA?
Okay, that's a good point. Now the thing is, what you need is not whether somebody is worshipping Allah or whether somebody is worshipping Narayana or Shiva or Isis or I mean that's the I forget the name. I think Isis is the name of a goddess. But anyway, whether they are worshipping some pagan goddess or Hindu god, that is secondary. Whether they are living a dharmic life, whether living a life that is basically conducive to a harmonious society, a balanced society is what is important, and that will happen. So what I expect is as India prospers, some of the religious tensions will actually decrease, and my expectation is that Indian Muslims will actually be a model community for the entire world. Compared to the other Muslims in Middle East, in Europe, in US, etc., Indian Muslims will be a model community. They will basically some of the extremist voices, radicalized voices will be suppressed or eliminated, and the moderate voices will be given a bigger platform, and they may worship they may whatever book they may read, whatever by whatever name they worship God, they may worship by whatever prayers they may worship God, they may continue to do that. But the thing is, they will be tolerant, and they will not say, if you don't worship this God with this way, you are doomed or you will go to hell. Those ideologies basically will go away. So in other words, whatever is consistent with Sanatan Dharma will remain, and whatever is inconsistent will basically be hidden or suppressed or not in the common consciousness of the practitioners of that religion. So that is my assessment. So the thing is, it is very important to focus on wealth creation in the country. Religion is really secondary, and and Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma have enough virtue in them, enough foundation in them, that once people become logical and rational and are inclined towards atheism, it has enough to draw them towards itself. And also it has enough to correct other religions, whether it's Christianity, Islam, whatever other religions are there. It can basically they can imbibe some of the foundations of Sanatana Dharma, and they can retain some practices, but at the same time they can be consistent with the core of Sanatana Dharma, which is what is important. So
Ji.
Sanatana Dharma has that power, and its time is coming. It has already started, but it will really it is in the next couple of decades that Sanatana Dharma will rise in the world. But it may not be exactly the way people are imagining right now. It's not like everybody will say, I'll worship Rama, I'll worship Shiva, I'll stop worshipping so and so God. It may not be that way. But the thing is, it will be
A different
beneficial for
evolved
them.
form. A different form.
Different form and different worldview, which is consistent with the Ashavidya, with the teachings of rishis.
Right. Mariana, last question for today. Uh, the future of dollar and the future of gold.
In general, gold gold is a good investment, and particularly in the next couple of years. Right now Guru is in Mithun Rasi. He is about to enter Karka, so he'll move among Mithuna, Karka, Simha, but go back to Karka. So mid next year onwards, for 1 year he'll be in Karka Rasi, where he's in Ucha. He's very strong. Ucha Guru is very strong, and then he'll go to Simha Rasi, which is a friendly sign. So,
Hmm.
and then even Kanya is pretty good. So next few years are excellent. In general, when Guru has a good transit, gold will really do well. So next few years, gold will really do well. And apart from astrology, if you look at it with common sense, in general, when there is instability in the world, gold tends to do well. That is what we see in history. And one thing I am very confident of is this instability that we are seeing right now. Starting from the pandemic, we have been seeing a lot of instability. This will only keep growing. There will be more and more chaos. It will just feel like what is going on in the world. People will basically every now and then people will say, "Oh my God, this I did not expect. What is happening?" So this kind of things we have been seeing in the last few years, and probably more this year. And unfortunately, in the next few years, it will keep growing towards
Growing.
2030. So the thing is, so when there is chaos and lot of destruction around us, gold will do well. So gold is a good investment in the next few years. As far as dollar is concerned, unfortunately, I'm afraid the US dominance in world economy is slowly coming to an end. I always liken today's US to UK of 1940s and 1950s. So they were the unquestioned superpower, and they basically slowly basically weakened. And US is doing the same thing. And I always liken China to Germany of 1930s and 1940s. Somebody who was expected to take over UK, basically become the number one superpower, but basically just fizzled out. So same thing will happen to China. So I am afraid dollar will weaken, but the thing is, it may not be immediately. It may not be in the next year, but definitely by the end of 2030, dollar will be a much weaker currency. And I will not be surprised if in late 2020s, like 2020, late 2026, or more likely 2027, 2028 time frame, the US dollar being used as common currency is basically, if it comes to an end in that time period, like 2027, 2028 time period, I will not be surprised at all. That is a distinct possibility. In general, world economy will see a lot of upheavals in the second half of this decade.
So you're saying the dollar will cease to end at some point
Not
of
not,
time?
not end, but basically being the common currency used by the world, there'll be big challenges to that. And obviously that kind of sea changes don't succeed in the first attempt. So there'll be an effort, and there'll be basically fight back from US, and that fight back will basically succeed to some extent, but there'll be pushback against that fight back, and it will in the end succeed. So what I'm expecting is, we'll see some of these games being played by US and China in the next 5 years, and there is a chance that it will actually succeed in 2027, 2028, and US dollar will cease to be the common currency, the standard currency of the world. There may be other alternatives. I don't know exactly what it is, but
What
there will be
about
other
crypto?
alternatives. Go ahead.
Perina, what about crypto? How do you see this crypto? I feel it is a Rahu actually. You can't see it, you can't feel it, you can't hold it.
It's Rahu
Will it
Ketu.
succeed? I feel it that way because it's just somewhere there in the air.
Fortunately or unfortunately, I expect that crypto will actually grow strength in the next few years. In general, whenever see Libra, the Tularasi shows marketplace, and whenever, if you look at the past, whenever Ketu is the planet of disruption. He's basically the headless planet. He's the planet of big changes and mistakes. So whenever Ketu comes to Libra, some big, and also he's the planet of high tech. So whenever Ketu comes to Libra, if you look at the past, whether it's basically the advent of plastic money, like credit card, or whether it's the digital money, basically all the digital transactions, they all started when Ketu was in Libra. But the thing is, when Ketu is in Libra, it will be up and down. It will seem like it will fizzle away. But slowly, as Ketu moves away from Libra to Virgo, it will grow a little stronger. Then Leo, Cancer, and finally, when he's in Gemini, it becomes really strong. Basically, the ninth house from Libra. And this is a pattern we have seen in the past. So, a few years back, when Ketu was in Libra, crypto really gained some momentum, but it seemed to fizzle out. But now it's again slowly, because he's in the 11th house from Libra right now. It is it is gaining some momentum. But when Ketu is in Gemini, which is roughly in another 2.5, 3 year time period, that will be a golden period for whatever new shady technology that started when Ketu was in Libra, that will really grow when Ketu is in Gemini. So this is a pattern we have seen several times. So my expectation is, within the next 5, 6 years, crypto will grow strength. It will gain momentum, and particularly around 3 years from now, it will be a golden period for crypto.
And then after that, it's going to stay as a currency. I'm quite
In general, in
shocked by
general,
it.
in general, things changes that happened when Ketu was in Libra, they became the norm. So I will not be surprised if it remains the norm going forward. But one thing is for sure, the instability regarding US dollar, the US debt situation, and some of the bullets that US is shooting at its own feet, this will basically create a sea change in the world economy. And there are different players who all have different agendas. So this will be a crazy time in world economy in the next 5 years. So things that we may not be able to even visualize right now may happen in the next 5 years. So US dollar ceasing to be the common currency and some other alternative coming up. One thing I'm confident is the alternative will be very favorable to India. Whatever alternative is, it will be favorable, it will be conducive to the growth of India. I'm not suggesting that it will be Indian rupee, it may be, but the final arrangement will be pro India. It will aid in growth of Indian economy in the coming decade or two.
Very interesting. This was a shocker for me, actually. I thought the crypto is going to go down, but it's here to stay for some time at least.
At least for
Very
the next 5 years, it is here to stay, and its peak may come 4 years from now, in my assessment.
right. Very interesting. But last question with that, I'll wind up. What
Yes.
about the property? What about the real estate? I'm
Eh,
listening from a lot of people who are into real estate and also from different people that there is going to be a downward trend towards the real estate, especially like flats and things like that. Yeah.
I haven't really taken a closer look at real estate, so I want to keep quiet for now. We'll cover some other time.
Some other time, definitely. Thank you so much Periana for joining. जाने से पहले व्यूअर्स को बता दूं, जहाँ पे आप कमेंट करते हैं वहाँ पे पेरियाना का वेबसाइट, यूट्यूब, links are given. Please visit him and follow him on those social media handles. और अगर आप मुझसे कनेक्ट करना चाहते हैं, फीडबैक देना चाहते हैं,
Actually, can I say one last thing before we
yes.
leave? See, I mentioned that one of the biggest problems for India right now is Ashtam Rahu. Rahu transiting in the eighth house from natal moon. So the best remedy for that is Durga worship. And because this is Navratri, suddenly it came to me. If everybody who's listening to this, who's watching this video, and came this far, if they listen to Durga Sapta Shloki, which is just takes 2 minutes, and on my YouTube channel there is a video, 2 minute video where I chant it, and there is a meaning and also text. You can chant along or just listen, and you can also see the meaning. So I will request you to put that link also. I'll give you that link, and I request everybody who listen to this video, please, for the next few days or maybe for the next few months, every morning or every evening, daily once, listen to Durga Saptashloki once, and think in your mind that things should be good for India. That will help you, and also that will help India. Thank you very much.
Very beautiful. You can always find time. आप लगाकर अपना काम करते रहिए. You can just let it play in the background also and keep doing your work. You know, you feel you're not listening, but you listen and you absorb actually. Yeah, because the ears are still working, right? अगर आप
Yeah.
Exactly. Drive कर रहे हो, करछी चला रहे हो kitchen में, or you know you're doing any other work in your house. It's very easy. Just you have to make a conscious decision that it should be on in the house. And I've really seen Periana. There are some people who are listening to Mahamrityunjay Jap. It's just playing in the background in the house with beautiful
Yeah.
scents and lot of बहुत ही साफ सुथरा पवित्र सा environment. So it helps. It helps you to avoid all the
Yes.
negativities also that are coming in the transitioning zone, uh, which is happening in the environment and the bigger space. So it will help you. Thank you so much Periana for joining. जाने से पहले like, subscribe and share. इसी के साथ जय हिंद, जय श्री राम, हर हर महादेव. Thank you so much.
Har Har Mahadev.